All right. The recording has started. I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. We will be talking about, you all will be talking about grading in SpeedGrader and Feedback Studio. Our presenter is Dr. Kim Priesmeyer. Dr. Priesmeyer has had a great track record with Belhaven, and she has presented many times for us here in these webinars and always does an excellent job. It's so informative. So I am confident that she is going to give you some excellent information. Let me give you a couple of things that will help in this process. Please keep your microphone on mute unless you have a question to ask. I heard a dog barking earlier, and it's probably best if we can avoid that. So keep your microphones on mute unless you have a question. I see there's some things in the chat area already. You can see there's a little chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you open that, you can keep that open in another place on your monitor somewhere perhaps and follow the chats if you want to. And we're getting some people typing in some greetings, so that's nice. Hopefully everybody can do that. I see Dr. Beasley, Patrick Beasley, can you hear us now?
I can now.
Okay, great. Looks like we're good to go. And so, Dr. Priesmeyer, I'm going to turn this over to you. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Upchurch. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming in here, especially, let's see, I see Ed Garrett is in there. I think it's either 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. So he's a real early bird to get in there this morning. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks for coming in. I'm scrolling through the participant list. Glad to see so many people coming in today. Just a word of introduction about me. I'm in a new role here at Belhaven. I'm now my official title is Dean for the Center for Teaching and Learning. And so my primary role is going to be faculty development. And after I'm finished today, one thing that I am going to ask you to do while we're all in here together, and it's good timing since it's December and we're thinking ahead about the new year, give me some ideas for webinars and trainings that you would like to see in the coming year that would help you be a better instructor, whether it be in adult studies or online. And a lot of times those two worlds are not that dissimilar. So if something comes into your head, kind of keep that idea, and toward the end, I am going to ask you to put in the chat box some ideas for upcoming webinars. I also want to take a moment and introduce Sharice Dockery, and she's in here too. She works in my department. Sometimes you'll hear from her as well. And she is really going to be my right hand in faculty development. She comes from the student services side of Belhaven, so she has an even additional perspective on working with students because she has worked with them on the student services side, which is not my area of expertise. So she really brings a lot, I think, and can bring a lot to the faculty development piece at Belhaven. So I am going to go ahead and get started. The goal today is to go through SpeedGrader, but I'm willing to talk about other ideas as well. This is very informal, but we're going to start with SpeedGrader. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you should be able to see. I'm going to take you into my current course, actually. So you should be able to see one of my current online courses, and that's English 108. I'm an English professor, so I teach online too, and I also taught in adult studies for many years. I definitely have kind of I have a lot of different perspectives on teaching, and so I want you to know that as you get to know me as someone who's going to support you as a faculty member, is that I'm teaching too, and that's really my background primarily is as faculty before I moved into this role. So all of the different questions and concerns that you have as a faculty member, I certainly share those, and I'm living it with you. So I think that I do want you to know that this is, working with students and helping them be successful is something that I'm certainly working through every day as well. So, all right. So this is just my one of my current course pages for my English course. And again, just as a reminder, make sure that you are making announcements. I think officially, according to your contract, you're supposed to be making one announcement per week. But, if something, certainly the more the better. And certainly those announcements can be things that have to do with assignments coming up. It can be with specific tips that you might want to give your students. It can just simply be reminders and words of encouragement. But I do know that sometimes faculty say that students don't read those, and certainly some of them don't. But I do think that most of our students do read them. And so that's a great way to engage with your courses, just to kind of keep those coming throughout the term. And students really do get a lot out of those. So I'm going to go ahead and just go into a current assignment right now that I've actually already graded in SpeedGrader. And I will tell you that Joe Villarreal, who's really our Canvas expert here at Belhaven, he really recommends grading assignments in SpeedGrader. And he says that students can see the comments more easily in SpeedGrader rather than grading them and turn it in. And so we really want you to grade those comments in SpeedGrader. Simply to do that, once you're looking at the assignment, I just use this point annotation up here, and I will click on it, and then I will make a comment right in here. And if you make a mistake or want to delete it, obviously you can just get rid of that, and it'll ask you, yes, I definitely want to get rid of that. But you can make comments right on the document. And I know that, sometimes I use SpeedGrader more in this way, where I make comments on the document itself, especially if it's a major paper or a major assignment where students really need detailed feedback. The comment box over here really doesn't allow you to point to specific things in the writing. I usually make like a general comment in the comment box, but then I make specific comments in SpeedGrader on the document itself. And that way I can point to very specific things, for example, the running head right here. And I can really point to specific things. If you're just leaving a comment in the comment box, you obviously cannot point to specific things that you want students to look at. And so I'll just kind of scroll through, and you'll see that, I've pointed out that a title page should not be in all capitals and things like that. And you can see that I went through here, and there's different comments that I've made about different things. And, I have faculty ask me the question a lot, that about marking absolutely everything in a document. And I really do not believe in doing that. For example, down here at the bottom, I wanted to point out to the student that this is a dropped quotation, and that as a college writer, you should be introducing your quotations and weaving those into your writing. But I'm not going to mark that every single time in a student's paper. But I'm going to point that out to him, at the first occurrence. But I don't think you should feel necessarily compelled to do that with every single thing. Sometimes faculty will say, there's so many errors, do I have to mark everything? And, my personal feeling is the answer to that is no. With grammar errors, sometimes I'll just take one paragraph and I'll mark things just in one paragraph so the student gets a feel for how many errors I'm actually seeing. But then I really don't want to mark up every single error in a paper, because obviously that could be a little bit discouraging for the student. And it also just the amount of comments just becomes so overwhelming at that point too. So I really want to focus on things that I know that I've taught, that are part of the lectures, that I have specifically taught if it's an adult, and if it's an adult class, in class, just to redirect the students to the things that I think are really important. So again, this is what Joe here, and again, he's our Canvas expert, he really recommends is to use SpeedGrader. It allows you to point out specific things that you know you've taught and that we want our students doing, whether it be formatting things or different organizational issues, things like that. And I know that a lot of times faculty do just use the comment box, but I do think that making the comments on the draft itself are more effective. And obviously up here you've got different tools. You can, if you're someone who wants to highlight things in the paper, you can do that. You can just add just a text comment, and you can do the different color coding here. Everybody kind of gets into their little different rhythms of evaluating papers and different things like that. In the past, I've color coded things, like if it's a proofreading error, I've made the comment in one color. If it's an organizational error, I might make the comment in another color. There's different ways to play around with that. So really the best way, you can do the free draw, where you kind of draw a circle around something in the paper, just like you would with a pen and paper if you were doing it, using a hard copy. So there's different ways to play around with that, but I think the main thing with SpeedGrader that it allows us to do as faculty is that it allows us to make specific comments in specific parts of the paper and really point to just that with your student. And, if you make a comment in the comment box that just says, there are a lot of APA errors, that's, I guess, better than nothing. And we certainly want students to know that, but we also want students to know the specifics of what we're talking about. That's really important too.
Tim, there's a question raised.
Yeah.
Dr. Perry has asked, are there point annotations able to be saved in a permanent offline format like a PDF to be shared outside the Canvas environment?
I don't know the answer to that. I've never tried to do that. Do you know, Dr. Upchurch? Is there something you know about?
I actually don't know the answer to that myself.
No, that's a good question though, and I can definitely take that to Joe. I would think if there were, we would see the ability up here to do that. So off the top of my head, I would say no, but I can definitely ask Joe about that, and I will get back to you for sure. That's a good question though. So I wanted to tell you too, I'm going to go back to my front page here, and Joe made a training video for students, because one thing that students tell me is, or a lot of times I'll get an email from a student and they'll say, I don't see the comments that you made. And so even though we have the directions posted in the help and resources over here, Joe noticed that the directions were a little bit outdated, but then also I asked him if he could just make a video. So if you go to the help and resources right here, there's actually a little video for students that they can watch. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And this video here is going to be a little training video. If they don't want to read the actual directions on how to view comments in SpeedGrader, they can watch this little training video. So it's a couple minutes long. I'm going to go ahead and play this for us.
I don't think the volume's coming through, Kim.
Okay, so now I could hear that fine. Rick, could you not hear that?
I could not hear any of it.
Oh, well, okay. I think when you play it on your own course page, because I can hear it fine on mine, so I don't know why that didn't translate into our Zoom room here. But when you play it, you can hear it fine, and you obviously saw the video, but not the. I'm sorry you didn't hear the audio. But again, you can direct your students to this. Again, help and resources. And there it is right there. Another thing too is notice up here, I also made an announcement about this to my students. So just to kind of show you, I went ahead and sent out an announcement to students because I wanted them to know about this. I think we all can agree that students are probably not going to find these things on their own unless we direct them to them. And again, this requires students to read the announcements, which I know doesn't always happen. But I sent out an announcement about this. I even put the link for the video in the announcement. That way, even if they don't want to go into help and resources, the video is right there in front of them in the announcement. So I think that that's one thing that is important for our students is we want to remove every possible barrier as possible. We know that we can do our very, very best and reach out to our students about really everything. And there will always be some students who will not take those directives or won't read the announcements or whatever. But I think that doing little things like that, like putting that announcement in your course page, going ahead and putting the link in the announcement, it's just that one extra step that might motivate a couple of students to actually look at it and look at your comments. So just to kind of show you that that was what I did there. So that's really about it for SpeedGrader. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. Come back into the room. And anybody want to just, present a scenario or have an idea about SpeedGrader, maybe something you do that you can kind of add to the conversation here that would bring some information into this today, or just a question. I'd be glad to just have a question and we could all kind of weigh in on some best practices for grading. Yeah, Ron, the feedback studio, right, and that's in Turnitin. Turnitin is something that exists outside of Canvas. SpeedGrader is something that is built into Canvas, and that's why Joe recommends using SpeedGrader, just because students can see the comments a lot more easily because it's actually just part of Canvas. And so we had an extended discussion about this, that you can grade in Turnitin, you can grade in SpeedGrader, but because SpeedGrader is part of Canvas, there's just more accessibility to it for students, and seems to be less steps in viewing the feedback. Any questions, comments about anything related to that? And again, I think that this is just a great opportunity to since we're all in here together and it's the end of the year, to get some of your suggestions about upcoming webinars or trainings that you think would help you, either from an adult studies perspective or from an online perspective. I know a lot of us definitely teach in different worlds. I'm sure there's some of you in here who teach in traditional, online, and adult. So, yeah, Susan, I keep a separate Word document with frequent grading comments. Yep, and then copy and paste them into SpeedGrader. I think that is a great idea. And as we know, we do have kind of those core comments, certainly, that we make to students over and over again. If that helps you to do that more quickly, that's a great idea. Go ahead.
I've also, Kim, kept that file, but I've also kept a file specific to each course that I teach, because I've noticed that in this course, I may have to make a comment related to this question repeatedly. So if I teach a course multiple times, I've always kept a separate Word document for each course with frequent comments, as well as the general one that has all of the grammatical and the other kind of things as well. Is that good practice?
Yeah, for sure. Everybody kind of has their own rhythm, certainly. I think it also depends on the course. I'm an English teacher, so a lot of the comments that I make, some of them certainly are ones that are that are repeated, that I could probably use general purpose and kind of save those and save a bank of those. But obviously there are times when I need to just kind of personally weigh in on that paper, whether it be about a specific topic choice or something like that. I find that I kind of move back and forth between all of that. And we all do a lot of grading. We know that you can implement different tricks and tips to get you through it, but at the end of the day, it's time consuming. And for, I know that our faculty spend a lot of time making those, really personal comments. And I think to personalize even those comments that you reuse is definitely a best practice by using the student's name. I know that might seem obvious, but when you're making comments to students, use a student's name in the comments. I think that's a great idea too, just because it helps to add that little bit of a personal touch to it. So, but I think moving among those different techniques, I think, that probably works best for most people, and we all know that we do that for sure.
Does SpeedGrader have a way for me to save my comments in a kind of a database kind of thing?
Yeah, and I saw that from Deborah. I don't know of that. Again, I'm jotting down these questions for Joe.
I know either Feedback Studio or SpeedGrader does.
Feedback Studio does. I do know that, and Ron. And I think that's probably, that's yeah. You can use the quick marks.
But you can do the same thing by just creating a Word file.
Yeah, for sure.
Labeling it and saving it. I mean, you do have to keep it organized a little bit so that you may want to put a header for grammatical page, or another page for week 1 that you typically have, because it flows into that particular course in week 1 or week 3 or week 5, whatever.
Yeah, and I do that for announcements too. Like there are certain announcements that I make to students, like that one that I just showed about viewing comments, viewing feedback. That's the type of announcement that before, the first, or after I grade that first paper, I want to save that, I want to save that announcement even, so that way I can, now obviously I can go back to a previous course as well, but, anything like that you can save. Nick, the good paper, yeah, let me show you, I'm going to go back to share my screen here. Again, if you go to the help and resources And again, this would be a great announcement to send out to students. Nick is asking about, is there an example of a good paper? And if you go to academic health, and we have a paper template that's right here. And then there's also little videos that are in here that students can watch about how to, that is, looking down here. Oh, it's right here. These are different things you can look at, these are videos on APA, the paper template, things like this. So these are things that you can definitely remind students about. I send out reminders about the academic help page in Help and Resources. I send out an announcement to remind students of this at the beginning of every course I teach. And so also over here, if they haven't signed up for Grammarly, this is where they can get a Grammarly account. And so things like that. The Belhaven Quick Guide is on here. This has a sample paper in it, sample title page. So really reminding students about the academic help page in an announcement or in your class for adult studies is really, really important. I know that when I taught adult studies, which I did for many years, I would take the first night of class and I would take 30 minutes of the first night of class and just pull up this screen and we would watch that video together. Sometimes you just have to take actual class time and do things like that. And even though it's not in the module, it's not part of the syllabus, you just have to take class time and do things like that because, just to tell students that, it has to be formatted for APA. They'll get a lot more out of it if you're actually going through the motions with them in class or in an online class, really guiding them to that academic help page. This is along the same lines. I wanted you to know that on Thursday last week, I recorded 6 different, what I'm calling writers workshop videos. And these are general videos that are going to cover things like how to format for APA, what plagiarism is, how to write a good paragraph, the basics of writing an essay, things like that that are just very foundational composition things that really students can use in any course. So these are soon going to be posted on the academic help page in every course. And because we know that students have to write papers in every course, that's not an English class thing. So I did do those last week and those are being edited as we speak. And as soon as they're ready, I will send out a reminder to you to guide your students to those, and you can take a look at them too, just so you can really reinforce those with your students. So those are upcoming as well. Yeah, Jeff, of course, the OWL. In fact, in my writers workshop videos, that's the website that I recommend is the Purdue OWL. It's, it's always tried and true, been around for a long time. They do a very good job. In fact, the sample paper that I use in my writers workshop videos, I get those documents from the Purdue OWL. So Rodney's suggestion, develop and post a FAQ for your course, and then, yes, I love that. That's great. So the types of questions that come in that are those common questions for your course, that's an excellent idea.
I noticed also that Seth and I think Addison also mentioned that you can download the comments. They figured out how to do that. Okay,
all right. Oh, Seth, good, thank you. I need to know how to do that. Come tell me. That's great. Yeah, because obviously if you're with, and that's a great thing too in an adult studies classroom. I'm just a firm believer in, again, I know that in adult studies it's packed, to get all of that in that condensed format, but I just really believe in, 5 or 10 minutes sitting down with students, and that would be a great thing to sit down with students with in an adult studies classroom, would be a copy of their writing and your comments and go over those together. That can really be meaningful and efficient. So.
And the whole purpose of grading really is another aspect of teaching anyway. It's not never, or at least it never should be a punitive kind of an assessment where all you're looking to do is point out the flaws of a student. It's all about continuing that practice of teaching that you've started in this whole process.
Right. Yeah. And, it really is, Rick. And I think that that's, something that we can, talk about briefly while we're in here, whether you're an adult studies faculty or an online faculty member. I really, without exception, if I feel like a student is attempting to do the work, I'm very willing to give students multiple opportunities to do better and to improve and to show that they want to do that. And even though that might not be built into the course, there are ways that faculty can still extend that to students. And I think that is, something that we can really do for our students that affects their success. So, obviously, from time to time, we all have students who are, trying to, beat the system, for lack of a better term. But I think generally speaking, most of our students want to pass their courses. They want to do well. They want to learn. Anything we can do to use grading as a teaching opportunity is something that, is something that I think is, just what we do to serve students. Yeah, Deborah, I know it's frustrating. We all certainly have those same frustrations that, we feel like we talk about it, we show them demonstrations, we send out templates, and certainly that's, and certainly that is a frustration, but we have to just hang in there and keep trying. And I think those little things like taking time to show the video, or if you're in an online class, putting the link for the template in your announcement so they don't have to hunt for it. Maybe just little things like that will get a few more students engaged. Tony, what do you think is the most effective way to relay this message in online classes to improve grades early in the course? Right. Well, and we know that that's true, Tony. We can't make them read those announcements. Again, I think that most students, and I do think that most of my students do read the announcements, but there are always going to be a few certainly that don't. What I've done before is to, early in the term, I'll send out an announcement and I will ask students to send me an email response to my actual Belhaven email, but not through Canvas. Just actually send me an email to let me know that they read the announcement. And then whoever you don't get an email from, certainly you can certainly let student services know. That's a good sign that they're probably not looking at them, and we can get on top of that a little bit sooner. But you can ask students to, respond back, that type of thing, just so you have an idea of who's reading it, things like that. But obviously, you're right. There are always going to be a few who are not going to read them, unfortunately. What about upcoming webinars? What would you like to see as we move into 2019? It can just be kind of an idea if you want to put that in the chat box, if something in particular that you would like to see in the coming year.
I know early in the chat area, Seth mentioned future webinar idea, constructing effective online assessments. I'm not sure where he's going with that, but maybe something you want to jot down, and maybe if you get a chance, visit with him on it.
Yeah, and Seth, are you talking about if it's an online course, or are you talking about just within Canvas if you're a traditional or an adult studies faculty? You might want to clarify that, or maybe all of the above, because that certainly could be addressed in all of those. Deborah asks, do you find video or written announcements more effective? I've used both, but don't know which ones are more likely to be seen. Well, I've done both too, and certainly you can make video announcements. I kind of go back and forth with that. I've even used the audio and the recorded announcements for grading as well. You can do that. You know, again, yeah, there's probably the same people who aren't reading them, aren't viewing them. But I do think that students, particularly online students, I think most of our online students really do like to hear personally from their instructors. They like to put a voice and a face to a name. And even though there will be some who will be pretty disengaged, I think generally speaking, they do like that. You know, enjoy, you know, online faculty can really share things with their students in that way that can complement the lecture material, can complement the assignments. That's a great way to add in your professional experience and to weigh in a short video in that way that you would send through an announcement. So I think that's, you know, I think that's a great technique to use. So Seth, just thinking it might be helpful to contemplate the difference between online and in class, the way they are written, the way they're graded, plagiarism, time quizzes. I agree. Okay. Excellent, thank you. Let's see, from someone else here, I'm not sure who PBEAS is, but you say, I would like to see more on learning strategies for adult learners. Well, Dr. Upchurch is definitely an expert on that, and I certainly am a student of that. Andragogy is what we call that. So we could definitely do some work on that in 2019. Dr. Upchurch has done that before, but I know that he's always learning new things. And many of our adult studies students are also our online students, you know. So I think that could, Patrick Beasley, thank you. I think that could probably, you know, apply certainly to both adult and online classes. Anything else, Dr. Upchurch? You want to weigh in on any of that?
I think you've touched on a lot of good things. The use of SpeedGrader is preferred. I think that came through. Because SpeedGrader doesn't maintain a library of comments, we'll have to do that on our own. Probably using a Word document that we can cut and paste from, and that's a good practice as well. Being able to make comments within the text, the body of the text, is probably more meaningful for students than making them other places, and I think that's a good practice as well. Obviously, turning around our material quickly wasn't mentioned, but certainly a good practice would be to make sure that assignments are graded within the week for that week. So that's a part of the process. Providing comments that are both candid but encouraging is also important, I think, and I think you've touched on that. Being able to use Canvas for all of your grading, although that was not mentioned, it's something we are pushing all of our faculty to do. And we've had incidences just recently at a couple of campuses where having all the grades in Canvas has been very useful for them as they've gone through a grade appeal scenario. So making sure your grades are in Canvas is a big deal. So all of those pieces are part of what I've been listening to, and then the importance of making announcements weekly or more often in whatever format, whether it's written or doing it by video. And we also have available to us ARC now. And most of us don't know much about that. We'll probably put a training together in the near future. But ARC allows you to do creative tutorials for your students that you could put together and add to your to an announcement for students to see as well. Did I try and summarize and touch on what you were going for there?
Yeah, you did. And I think that that's, back to what you said about being able to point to those, make constructive comments to students. I know that's something that I always kind of struggle with is, I need to tell students what they're doing wrong. I mean, that's part of my job as a faculty member. They can't improve unless I point those things out to them. But trying to do it certainly in a gentle way. And again, just going back to what I said, like about using their names, that's a great way to, to kind of connect with students. Back to the basics of, just using words like please or make sure or you may want to consider, things like that. Sometimes, I think we can tell students the truth about what they need to hear about making improvements, but do that in a, with just, by adding maybe a couple of words of courtesy in there really goes a long way. I will tell you that now that I'm in this position, one of the main comments that, that because now all of those things from students are coming across my desk, so I see the different student concerns that come into the department, and certainly one of the main ones is that students are very sensitive about our comments and that we make to them, and especially in an online environment where students really don't get an opportunity to know your heart and to know how much you care about them. We do have to be really careful about how we word things to students in the comments that we make about their work. When we're in a face-to-face class with students, we can build their trust that way. They get to know us better that way. But in an online environment, students will sometimes take something, they will be offended by something that we certainly didn't intend. And so kind of covering your bases as much as possible by using those simple words of kindness and courtesy, please, thank you, you may want to consider, take into consideration, again, using their name, saying something good that they're doing before you tell them something critical. That always works. And these are just things in terms of just relationships in general that we know are best practices, and students are no different. But because in an online environment, if that's all they're reading are your comments, we do need to be careful about how we word things, because students do complain and they do get their feelings hurt. And we know that a lot of our students, this is probably the fifth, sixth, seventh institution that they've been in, and they haven't experienced a lot of success along the way. So of course, their emotions are, tend to be pretty raw. And so I think just remembering that when you're making comments to students and it's not face-to-face, we do have to be careful and measured in how we do that. I try to be very honest with students, but at the same time, remember that just like in an email or a text message, every word matters, every word counts. And if I say it the wrong way, a student is going to be potentially offended or unhappy. And that's definitely not the result that I want. So
here's another thing that I want to throw in here, since we have a few minutes, and maybe we can all discuss this. I've talked with several faculty lately who have told me that their practice is in grading that they start off giving the students a little bit of grace. In other words, they start off relatively easy on their grading and then toughen up. And my experience, and I learned this actually from talking to my wife, who was an elementary school teacher and then a middle school teacher, and the education department, none of us who teach in higher education, or very few of us in higher education, have taught in the public school system. But if you are a public school teacher or an elementary school teacher, then you know this is an educational good practice. But us in higher education have adopted something that's makes sense, you know, from our brains. In our brains, we say, "Oh, this makes great sense," and in reality, the other works. And that is, if you start off grading almost fiercely, then people will rise to that. The students will rise to that quality, and it will make it easier across the board. But if you start off with grace, by the time they realize that, because our classes are so short, by the time they realize that that's not exactly what they should have been doing, you've lost the opportunity to really pull them up to the level they need to. And all of a sudden, they're whining and complaining about how hard you are, rather than if you had started off being somewhat rigorous, let's use that word, at the very beginning.
Yeah, Dr. Upchurch, and I agree. You know, I think that I think that there are, and I will tell you, just again a bit more about me. That's really where I spent my career. I was a high school and middle school English teacher for many years, and so I did come up through the ranks of teaching into higher ed. And so I think that you know, your wife's perspective, certainly I can see both sides of that. And I think maybe the correct answer falls somewhere in the middle. You know, that's kind of back to what I was saying about giving students multiple opportunities to rise to the occasion. Also, you know, sometimes if a student has clearly not followed directions at all and turns in something that does not reflect that he watched the lectures or listened in class, if it's adult studies, or just maybe did it an hour before class or before the due date, and it's, you know, it's really, you know, really poor work, give the student the grade that he deserves, but send the student a message that says, you know, if you'd like to revise this, I'm willing to add some points. That way it puts the responsibility back on the student to actually do the work correctly, but there's a reward for that. Yeah. And so I think that's a combination of grace and firmness. I also typically give students a very tight timeline when I offer those types of opportunities, because I found that if you give them too much time, they'll take all of that time and wait till the last minute again. So I typically, depending upon the assignment, I typically will give them maybe only 48 to 72 hours, because I feel like, you know, if a student really wants to take advantage of the opportunity, he'll do it and he'll get busy doing it. And I don't want to drag it out too long, because then it just gets lost in all of his other assignments. Then he just gets behind more. So I think, you know, kind of a blend of those two is that, I would say that's my personal philosophy.
Like that. Thank you. A lot of comments coming in. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I know. Let's see. Yeah, these are just comments about what we were talking about. This is about rubrics. I follow the grading rubric in the course and tell students that from the beginning and all along, but many students don't seem to understand the grading rubric. Well, yeah, again, and I know that at Belhaven we're having a lot of discussions about rubrics in general. We're trying to figure out kind of a better way to do that. I was in curriculum for a while, so I was part of the discussion there. And now that I'm over here, I do know that we do need to do a better job with rubrics, and we are working on that, and we are talking about that. That's one of the changes for the new year that you can expect, is just seeing more discussion about that and hopefully making some progress about it. You know, and again, Deborah, you know, we know we can't make them, you know, read anything, but I think that, you know, sending out additional information about the rubric, you know, just from you personally, that can help sometimes to explain it, and to maybe just add to their understanding of the rubric. From Ron, how do you handle any revisions? Are they able to upload revisions to Canvas? If it's a Turnitin assignment and you want them to revise something, you as the faculty member have to go in and delete their previous assignment, so they will have a place to submit the new one. And I think Joe actually made a little video on that might be in Help and Resources. I know he said this was several months ago. He may have sent out an announcement about it, but you have to actually delete their submission if you want it to be run through Turnitin again. What I do sometimes is I will just have them, depending upon the assignment, I'll just tell them to email the revision to me. You know, they can just do it that way. And then I just make a note of that in Canvas that it was sent to me. So there are some different ways that you can handle that. Yeah, Tony says, I insert a copy of the rubric and scoring for each element at the bottom of each writing assignment so the student will see the areas they are lacking. Yep, that's great. Yeah, Mike, this is being recorded. And Dr. Upchurch, where can people find that, the recording of this? You need to turn on your mic.
I will send a link of the recording to all of those who registered for this webinar. Plus, we'll post it in the faculty development Canvas site so that you can have access to that. Oh, I mean the faculty blog. We'll put it on the faculty blog. I know all of you get emails through there and get notifications from there as well. So it'll be listed there along with some other great tutorials and webinars we've had in the past on a similar topic. So please don't hesitate to check back through those faculty resources on the faculty blog, because there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, and again, I will let you know when those new Writers Workshop videos are ready and edited. I believe we're going to put those, I need to just finalize that with Joe, but I believe we're going to put those on the academic help page. And again, like I did, and they're very short. Each one of them is only about 10 minutes long because I figured if they were lengthy, students would not watch them. But I mean, I started with the basics, like how to write a good paragraph. And I included things like make sure to indent it. I mean, just things like that we know that sometimes, you know, students, if they're coming back to college, they just, you know, I really started at the basics. I went over, you know, how to write an introduction, a thesis statement, things like that. But then also the basics of APA. I included the basics of direct quoting and paraphrasing as well as formatting. And then I did one on plagiarism. So those will be really, I'm hoping, really useful in any course that you teach. And we're going to get those loaded as soon as possible.
Excellent.
From here on out, I'm really your contact as far as a faculty member. You'll be getting announcements from me periodically. We do send out the online newsletter for online faculty. And moving forward into 2019, we're going to get our webinar and training calendar going here for the new year. And if you ever have a suggestion, send me an email, or, I'm just happy to talk through anything that comes up for you as a faculty member. You can just consider me your personal resource. I won't always have all the answers, but I promise you I will return your email, return your phone call, and I will help you as much as I can to figure it out. So I appreciate your time this morning. It's good to see everyone. Have a very Merry Christmas if we don't see each other again. Thank you, Dr. Upchurch, for putting this together initially.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Priesmeyer, for your presentation. Great conversation, great presentation, as always. And we'll be getting together to work on all that stuff. I'm excited by the number of who attended. This probably is our record attendance.
This is great.
39 or 40 in attendance, and as many as 90 signed up for this. So I'm really excited by that, and obviously a topic that resonates, and we love that. So we'd like to do more, and we'll be in contact. But look for the link. It should be coming to your way fairly soon. Thank you all.
Bye.
God bless.